This isn't a traditional Halloween movie, but it still counts. I started this month with a plan to watch scary Halloween movies. So far that plan has worked, but after watching Silence of the Lambs, I needed a break from the fear factor, and then I remembered the Goonies. This is a light-hearted Halloween movie, something that's not really traditionally a Halloween movie, but I'm counting it anyways, because there's a semi-monster involved, there's a treasure hunt, it's cold, so we're just gonna go with that and run with it. It's an 80s movie, so I knew I was in for a good time. First, I'm gonna give you my thoughts on the movie and what I thought about it, and then I'll give you the reasoning why I think this is such a good movie, why I think everybody still loves it. It's considered a cult classic, so you know, we're gonna talk about why. One of the most satisfying things in movies is the pacing. When one scene flows into the next effortlessly, it's really the best thing that a creator can do for the audience. I mean, there's obvious chapter breaks and things in between each individual scene and individual beat in the movie, but when all of those flow so naturally together and you can tell, then it's great. I love it. If you don't know what pacing is basically just pauses and the moments in between moments, if that makes sense. I don't know if it does. Pacing is what speeds up your heart rate when there's a scary moment, or when it slows down when it's a very slow and dramatic moment. That's kind of what pacing is in a nutshell. This movie's pacing is absolutely fantastic. My attention was there for the entirety of the movie's runtime. I was engaged in everything that they were doing and saying and overall storytelling of this. You know how sometimes when you're watching a movie on VOD where you need to pause to do something else, like go and grab a snack or something like that? Yeah, that didn't happen in this movie. There was never one pausable moment in the entire movie. I had to force myself to pause the movie to go and grab a snack or lunch or whatever I was doing at the time. The pacing and the energy in this movie was so good and it flowed so well that you could just really have fun with the characters and get to know them and really pay attention to other details that you never thought. And with a movie that with this big of a cast, there's a lot of kids involved and there's 3 villains. I mean, there's one general villain, but there are 3 people who are the villains. And with a cast that size and that massive, your pacing needs to be on point so that everybody is just on the same page for everything and you're not getting this awkward like line break for somebody to say a really witty, funny line, but like the dialogue and the way that they were talking really brought out that side of the movie of the pacing, and the general flow of the movie was so good. I'm not usually one to praise the actors. Actually, that's a lie. That's a complete and total lie. Never mind. I do talk about actors a lot, actually, and one in particular was in my last video where I talked about Silence of the Lambs and the incredible performances of Anthony Hopkins and Jodie Foster. If you want to check that out, it's in the cards up above. Also, a link down in the description box. You guys can go check out that video as soon as this one's done, or even in the middle of this one. Doesn't matter, whatever. Anyways, the other thing that stood out to me was the actors. The performances of the child actors in this were absolutely incredible. I loved each and every one of them. You can really tell that they were having fun on screen. Working with child actors is always a gamble, but this movie did it tastefully and in a way that you knew that the kids were having fun during the filming of this. This movie defied the expectations of children in movies. Most of the time when you have children in movies, they're just there to be like this other weird add-on character, but in this movie the kids were the main part of the movie. They weren't teenagers, they were kids. So it's a big risk when you're working with children. The hard thing about working with child actors is it puts a lot of stress on the director to direct the children, because when you're working with adults you have more experience, you have more ingenuity and creativity when it comes to acting on screen, but with kids you need a lot of direction and a very guided hand on the kids who are actors. I mean, they might be experienced, that's completely different, but most child actors don't have a lot of experience, and so that's when the directors have to step in and really have a very creative vision for the direction of a scene or the entire movie in order for these kids to, you know, be put on the best performances that they can do. There's this one scene in particular where I'm thinking about where Josh Brolin's character has to bike ride to go and chase his brother, and he borrows this this little girl's bike, and like it was really funny how that interchange went between the two of them. It was really funny and I really enjoyed it. I always feel for child actors, but these kids looked like they had so much fun during filming, and this was like an experience for them, not just something that, you know, they were tortured over or whatever. But the best part of the movie for me was at the end, where none of the adults believed the kids when they were talking about a pirate ship with jewels. Even when they got the evidence of the gemstones and the jewels from the pirate ship, like, even that didn't convince them enough. It took the pirate ship coming out of the cave and into the open ocean for them to realize that the kids were actually telling the truth. And that's what was one of the best parts and most relatable and realistic moments of the entire movie. Something about that just let everything wrap up really nicely. Before I go into why this movie is a cult classic and why it's such a great movie for everybody to watch, consider subscribing to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. If you don't want to do that, just like this video. It really helps me out and the YouTube algorithm. But if you really like what I'm saying and you want to know more, go ahead and click on the subscribe button to learn more. The thing about 80s movies is that there's a lot of different genres being put into one movie that's never been done before. Usually you just have your westerns or your film noirs or your musicals or whatever, or your romantic movies. But this one had a little bit of romance. It was a treasure hunt. It was a kids movie. It was a Halloween movie. It was kind of a little bit of a monster movie at the same time. So all of those things mushing together creates a faster pace because there's more things to pay attention to, more genres to intertwine and exchange in between scenes and between characters. So why is this movie so great? Couple of reasons, actually, I think why. I've mentioned a couple of reasons before, but I think the main reason is because The Goonies is about a group of outcasts. Like a lot of the 80s movies, The Goonies is about a group of outcasts, or one outcast, or multiple. In this case, it's multiple. You think about Ferris Bueller's Day Off, classic 80s movie. This is the guy who doesn't get made fun of, but he's not exactly like the most popular kid at school. Or you think about Back to the Future. Marty McFly is not the coolest kid in school. He's not even the toughest. He's just a dude. The Goonies is about a bunch of kids that no one cares about. Plus a weird workout teenager that just happens to be Josh Brolin. There's nothing that an audience wants to relate to more than a relatable character or group of characters. This really speaks to the human individual, where everybody in one sense or another is an outcast. I was an outcast, you were an outcast. Most of us are outcasts when we go to watch movies. Like, you could be one of the most popular kids in school, but you're still an outcast in some way or form. Like, you're never gonna be the nerd or whatever. But everybody's felt alienated in some way or form at some point in time. Nobody's ever thought that they really belonged somewhere all the time. There might be a couple of people that exist like that, but in general, no. Plus, you give the lead asthma and the kid is instantly lovable. Except for, you know, the cheerleader, Andy, who, you know, is the popular kid, but she becomes a Goonie at the end of it. If you actually pay attention to her dialogue, she is a really weird character in some sense. But it gives them the best instances of dialogue and the best moments that's ever captured on camera. Like, Chunk has one of the best monologues ever captured and put onto the silver screen. The guy was a written masterpiece. It was just so much fun. So that's the first reason, is because this is a movie of outcasts. Kids who don't really fit in with the regular crowd, kids who are a little bit weird, who have asthma, that kind of thing. But another reason why this movie is so great is because of the reasoning behind the treasure hunt. Most of the movie is spent on the treasure hunt itself. I would say like 90% of this movie is about the treasure hunt, about this kid who finds a map and follows the clues and plays a piano to find the treasure, the gold, the jewels at the end of the movie. But there's an important reason that happens at the beginning of the movie where it like really sets the tone for the entire movie and really gets the adults hooked on it. These kids with the purest of hearts want to help their parents with their financial problems. The entire neighborhood is, you can tell it's poor because of just the general state of the houses. It's a very poor economic neighborhood. So these parents are just working whatever jobs they can to stay on their feet, keep their houses, do that kind of thing. And these kids notice these things because kids notice a lot. It's really evident in this movie that they do. And it shows that kids are smarter than you think that they are. I mean, one of them's literally named Data and he makes inventions. It's pretty fantastic. But their motives to help their parents stay in the area and not have their houses be sold into a resort, I think it is. Basically, these very rich developers and contractors decide to take over this land that's in economic disrepair. And these kids want to stay and they want to help their parents, so that's why they go on this treasure hunt. The motives are honest, which gets you hooked from the beginning. This is a kids movie about economics. And it's directed by Steven Spielberg. Notice I haven't mentioned the legend's name until it was attached to kids movie. This is a kids movie directed by Steven Spielberg about financial crisis and treasure hunting. Where else can you get a movie like this except in the 80s? I guess what I really want to say is that you don't have to be a kids movie and only talk about, wanting sugar for the rest of your life. You can have a kids movie and talk about financial and economic crisis and just really get it to a point where you can actually mean something to people. It's a kids movie. But this movie didn't get preachy either, in the sense of like you were literally shoving global warming down their throats. Like, it's not that kind of movie. It's still a kids movie where the kids can have fun and enjoy themselves, but at the same time, the movie is addressing adult issues, real problems. There's not a lot more to be said about this. It's a kids movie about outcasts. And what is more relatable than that? To wrap up this video, let's do the question of the week, which is going to be, who is your favorite Goonie? Let me know in the comments down below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great random Thursday. I'll see you on the other side of the screen.